Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of freedom. I want to start off right away by showing you some video. This was a video. I don't know where the school is, so forgive me for not doing my due diligence on this. However, I watched a video over the weekend that absolutely disgusted me. And upon initial thoughts, I didn't even know what to say or what to think. And I was so, just my initial reaction, I was so mad and disgusted and a little, I don't even know what word to use, maybe confused, maybe bewildered, maybe discouraged, I straight up downtrodden. I mean, I don't know. It's insane, but I'm sure many of you have seen the video by now. This is and I do need to know what school this is. I don't know why. This just coming in. Trump cannot be kicked off the ballot. Man, that's right on time. That is right on time. Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of freedom. That is right on time. Liberals are going to be weeping. There's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth from liberals. So that is great news. Great news. The Supreme Court, Trump cannot be kicked off of the ballot. That's going to have implications for a lot of these cases where, Illinois and Maine are both following Trump's lead. And this had to be done, obviously, because you have Super Tuesday tomorrow. Over the weekend, Trump killed it in some caucuses. So we'll give you the latest updates on that. Nikki Haley won, picking up, I think it was 18 or 19 delegates in Washington, D.C. But listen, everybody knows that Washington, D.C. is a liberal cesspool. So that's not surprising that she would win that. Frankly, I feel like that place shouldn't count. I think that D.C. needs to be broken up. I really don't think that voters there or maybe some of our institutions need to be moved outside of D.C. Just absolutely insane. But nonetheless, here we go. Let's go ahead and roll this video. I've got a lot of news for you today, and I've also got some of the biggest stories that took place over the weekend that I want to talk to you about, and that is Catherine Herridge, former journalist, reporter for Fox News and now for CBS, that has been held in contempt of court for refusing to give up her sources on a story. I'll give you a little history of that. Also, Steve Baker of The Blaze was arrested by the FBI. Handcuffed, shackled. He gave an interview to Steve Deace of The Blaze. We're going to play that interview in its entirety. We will have to break it up because it is 8 minutes long. We reached out to Steve Baker before he was arrested. At that point in time, he asked us to, ask for his attorneys. But what we'll do is that didn't work out. But what we'll do is we'll reach out to Steve Baker and see if we can get him on the program, because I think these are two of the biggest stories that are out there. Besides, obviously, this story with Laken Riley. Laken Riley has become sort of I don't even know how to explain it, but she's become this figure for the left. I don't want to say a martyr, but she's become this figure for the right. I'm sorry, where people are just like, okay, enough is enough with these open borders. So we'll talk about all that kind of stuff. But here, let's go ahead and roll this video, and I will react to this video. These are kids at a school, and let me see if I can just find where the heck these kids are. I do not know the name of this school. Let's see. This happened at DC Antlers. Students sucked on the toes of adults during a school fundraising event. I'm assuming this is a school in DC. All right. At DC Antlers. So I'm assuming this is a school, a grade school, maybe a middle school in DC. That's what I suspect. Okay, here, this is from Libs of TikTok. Here's an update. The school district at DC Antlers is defending the toe-sucking video, claiming it was for charity. They also claim it was students sucking other students' toes. This doesn't make it any better. This was a school-sanctioned event which was overseen and cheered on by adults. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the tolls of these. You can look at the kids on the ground and they look like kids, and you can see those people in their chairs and they don't look like students. And if they are, it's sad because in my opinion, it's voyeurism and pedophilia, but so just as bad. Let's go ahead and roll the video. I'll give you my reaction to it. You just heard some of it and we'll move on with the program. But again, two of the biggest stories of the week. Actually, this breaking news is huge. Now you have Trump, the Supreme Court saying that Trump cannot be left off of the ballot in Colorado again with Super Tuesday tomorrow. Very, very important, very, very big news. Without any further ado, I'm blabbing too much, Gabe. Let's roll the video.
He is devouring those! Oh my!
Okay. All right. So there you see a grown behind adult on the microphone, right? Coming into the picture frame or coming into the video frame. I'm assuming that the people sitting down and having their toes licked and sucked are adults. If they're not, if they're just older students, I'm sorry, that doesn't make it any better. To me, again, my opinion would be that would be voyeurism by adults in the room. But listen, I believe those were adults. And here's my reaction to it, because at first I really didn't know honestly, I was devastated, because sometimes you look at stuff like this, right? And I'm like, dang, how much further into depravity is America going to sink? It's like every day or every week, there's some story that just makes you feel like what the heck happened to America? How have we become? And honestly, I know this hasn't happened overnight. This hasn't even happened as a necessarily because of Joe Biden. Although Joe Biden is evil is all get out, in my opinion, it isn't just necessarily because of Joe Biden. Our country has just moved further and further away from God. And honestly, when you move away from God, everything becomes God. You become moral. Whatever you say is moral is moral. That's why it's so important to live by biblical values. That's why our Constitution is so important. Our founding documents are so important, that embrace Judeo-Christian values, because even though America wasn't perfect and even though we sinned, we've been able to atone for those sins as a result of our value system. But that value system is being fundamentally undermined. And so when you see these kids being taught to be sexual, what do you think that is? What do you think sucking on toes is? What do you think that could lead to? What do you think that would arouse in children? What if some of those kids, God forbid any of those kids have been molested or raped or anything like that? What could that stir up in them? And God forbid any of those kids, Lord willing, none of them have been molested or raped, but hopefully none of those kids have been sexually active. But let's be real, in today's society, would it surprise you? All right. And so there you would have children stirring up lust for adults, and adults, we don't know if those adults, we don't know what adults felt about those kids, those children sucking on their toes, licking on their toes. Were there grown women there? Were there grown men there? Were they getting aroused by that? They say it was a fundraiser. It was all in jest. These adults should know better. Somebody should be going to jail. As a matter of fact, any adult that participated in that and filmed that, in my opinion, should go to jail. Guys, there's got to be standards. There has got to be standards, all right? I don't understand how all of a sudden it is okay to sexualize our children. But this is where the left goes. This is where commies go. This is exactly where they go. Oh man, this is maddening. But this is what the left wants. This is what the left wants. They want absolute chaos, and they're getting it. Again, just to sum it up, somebody should go to jail. Kids should not be sucking on the toes of adults or other students for the pleasure of adults or for a fundraiser or for anything of the sort. You're going to stir up sexual feelings in children that don't belong there. You're going to possibly stir up sexual feelings by adults for children that don't belong there. This is wrong on all levels, and somebody should pay the price. Moving on to the next video. This is a climate change fake or a climate change worshiper, that's bought into the man-made climate change hoax. And I got to tell you, I don't have much respect for Joe Manchin at all, but his reaction to this, and then I don't know if it was his security guard or someone on his staff, their reaction to this gave me a little more respect for Joe Manchin, although it is still low. This video will make you feel good if you're tired of the climate change hoax being imposed upon all of us. Let's go ahead and roll this video. Por favor, Gabe. Again, this is Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. This kid is going off on him, talking about he's selling our future. You sold our futures and you got rich doing it. And Joe Manchin handled it like a champ until this punk said something that caused Joe Manchin to react. Like, I was like, man, I want to see my senators react like that. I absolutely love this reaction. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and roll the video. Oh, and listen, if you want to see this video, guys, please remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our Rumble channel. We're not going to be censored on Rumble. So, all right, so just remember that. But we also need you on YouTube. We need to make waves everywhere. Wherever I am on social media at The Carl Jackson Show, and to subscribe to the podcast, The Carl Jackson Show, wherever you go to get it. If you're on YouTube and Rumble, if you would please take the time. I would so appreciate it, all right, if you would review it, if you would give us the highest score possible. That's going to allow us to be seen and move up the charts a little bit. And if you don't mind sharing the podcast, if you enjoy it, we would certainly appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and roll this video. Por favor, Gabe.
You sold our futures and you've gotten rich doing it. You sick. How dare you? You sold our futures.
I was impressed with how quick Joe Manchin got. Listen, there's something you don't do with a grown man. You don't call him outside of his name and not expect some type of reaction. He restrained himself. The other guy helped to restrain Joe Manchin, but Joe Manchin was like, listen, you've crossed the line. And honestly, it's just good, I'll be frank with you, to see testicular fortitude on occasion. Because these brainwashed useful idiots, these brainwashed lemmings have been told, look at what you see in that video. First off, they've been told that climate change is an existential threat to the world. This is their God. They don't serve a God. All right. They don't serve a God. Well, they serve that God. They serve the God of climate change. They really believe that. And this is what the left wants them to believe, that this is an existential threat. If they're using natural fossil fuels, listen to me, if they're using natural fossil fuels, that those are more dangerous for the environment than man-made solutions. I mean, just stop and think about that on the surface. That no common sense, absolutely no common sense. So that was absolutely insane to me. So that was, anyway, I was just happy to see that reaction from Joe Manchin, and I was happy to see that useful idiot get body slammed, because for one, you shouldn't be talking to senators like that. You shouldn't be talking to adults like that, even if you have strong disagreements, frankly, even if you yell, because those people do work for us, all right? So I do feel like we have a right to do that, but there should be a level of decorum that obviously didn't exist with that youngster. And I have a problem with that, because I do feel like a lot of people on the left are raising their kids and raising leftists to not respect the elderly. And I'm sorry, I think for society to remain civil, we have to love life. We have to love liberty. But starting from, from the womb to the tomb, we have to respect life. I don't trust people that don't respect life. I don't trust people that don't respect babies. I don't trust people that don't respect the elderly. I don't want those fools running the country. It's really simple for me. All right. This is, guys, honestly, this is one of the biggest stories. I want you to understand what's happening. And I want to put this into perspective. Gabe, I think this is a good, this may be a good time to pay attention, if you will, for all of you, but especially for Gabe, because Gabe will cut clips later. All right. So that's why I say that. But I want you to understand what's going on. There's this Catherine Herridge story. Catherine Herridge recently fired from CBS. And I'll just remind you or recap that story a little bit. And I'll talk to you about the latest that has occurred with Catherine Herridge formerly of CBS News, formerly of Fox News, but also this story of Steve Baker. Steve Baker was in the Capitol on J6. He was charged with all types of things, none of which he's guilty of. There's video evidence to prove that he wasn't guilty of any of the things that he was charged with. And he was there journaling. He was actually there reporting. Now, they're not going after any left-wing Antifa, BLM reporters. They went after Steve Baker. And they didn't go after Steve Baker until he had the FBI had no desire to go after this guy until there was more video evidence of this J6 after Speaker Mike Johnson became Speaker, and they said they would release more evidence or more video of the J6 riot, mostly peaceful protests. However, Steve Baker has been combing through that video or pining through that video and releasing more and more evidence. Now, all of a sudden, the FBI decided that he's somehow become a nuisance and they wanted to arrest him for his reporting. Catherine Herridge found in contempt of court. Why? She was found in contempt of court because she refused, like a real gangster journalist, like a real journalist, an old school journalist. She said, I'm not revealing my sources. So they're holding her in contempt of court. Guys, listen to me. In 2020, listen to me. You got to hear this. In 2020, what did the left do? They censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which really isn't about Hunter Biden. All right. It's disgusting. He's doing drugs, having sex with all types of prostitutes and all that kind of stuff. But the story, the Hunter Biden laptop story, wasn't about Hunter Biden. What was devastating on that laptop were the connections that Hunter Biden, business connections Hunter Biden was making for his dad. He was working for his dad, Joe Biden. So the mainstream media, the left, the intelligence community, including the FBI, censored that laptop story. But now they've progressed. Not only are they censoring stories leading up to 2024, because you could bet your bottom dollar so many of these fools are pooping their pants and they're going to go out of their way to make sure that Trump is not the next president. I hope he succeeds, but listen, I talked about it last week. They're going lawfare like crazy to try to destroy this guy, but they just got some bad news because now Trump can't be allowed on the ballot. That's going to have major implications, in my opinion, for Maine and Illinois. But they progressed. They're not just censoring information. Now they're arresting journalists that are willing to report good information, true information. That's what we see happening. This is Steve Baker of The Blaze. This is actual a recording of him being arrested by the FBI. Remember, he was in the building, J6, reporting. He wasn't far from Ashley Babbitt. As a matter of fact, I believe he got if I recall correctly, he got the video after Ashley Babbitt was wheeled out of the Capitol, headed to the hospital. I believe that was his video footage. Anyway, here's Steve Baker. Now he's being punished just as of this last fall when Speaker Mike Johnson released this new video. You have Steve Baker combing through it, releasing material, and now he's being arrested. He's being punished because he's reporting on what really happened on J6. Let's roll the video, por favor, Gabe. It's the next step. And this isn't just about journalists. This isn't just about journalists. Apparently, they told him to. Yeah. All of it's a good point, Gabe. All of this is intentional. He's being arrested by 2 black FBI, I believe, to make a point. He was told to go in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops. He didn't do it. He went there in a suit. They took his suit jacket. They took his tie. They took his belt. They took his shoelaces. All right, he'll share that in an interview later, and we'll get back to that. But I want to frame that because I want you to understand how far the left is willing to go. Look at what these people will stop at nothing to fundamentally transform America. It's to keep Donald Trump out, but it's so beyond Donald Trump. It is so beyond Donald Trump. I think they would have destroyed anyone. And perhaps not. I give Trump credit because a lot of people wouldn't have had the courage to fight back against the establishment in the way that Trump did. Unfortunately, he ended up being duped in his last year by Fauci and Deborah Birx. So that really killed him and virtually rolled back, everything that he had done. But up until that point, I mean, he was straight up gangster against the establishment, and they did not like it. And now they do fear him coming back because they're like, crap, he knows where all of the skeletons are. He knows where all of the skeletons are buried. And these fools are scared that this will turn on them. So what do they want to do? This is election interference. This is what this is all about. Scare the crap out of journalists that are willing to report the truth. All right, you scare the crud out of them. You censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. You censor anything that, has to do with Joe Biden's corruption. You distract from that. You keep people mad over issues of transgenderism, over climate change and all. You keep people distracted by all of these issues. You make us the voters, or we the people, hate each other so that we're not focused on your policies and we don't end up hating you, the politicians. That's what this is about. This is straight up fear. These are fear tactics. And it isn't going to stop there. They're letting you know, the left, the Democrat Party, because they're communists, they're fascists, the leaders. They are letting you know, here's what we're going to do. Yes, we censored the laptop. Now we're going to censor the journalists. Hey, and for you citizens, if you continue to talk about this stuff, maybe we'll come after you too. We're definitely going to censor you. Whether that's on social media platforms like Facebook, whether that's Google. We're living in such crazy times, guys. Man, woo! I got some good headlines too, though. I will share, but I wanted to make sure that we hit this. Oh, yeah. All right. I wanted to make sure that we hit this. So anyway, that was Steve Baker. Now let me go through this story real quick. This is a Catherine Herridge, and then I want to close out with the video, the interview that Steve Deace of The Blaze gave to Steve Baker. And obviously, listen, guys, I don't care who gets the credit for this. They both work at The Blaze, or work for The Blaze, I should say. I think Steve Baker is an independent journalist. Obviously, Steve Deace, he came out with the book and the movie Nefarious. He's got his own thing going, but he works under The Blaze, or the umbrella of The Blaze, Glenn Beck's network. So before we get to that, let me share this story just real quick of Catherine Herridge. This is a summary from Breitbart, a rather lengthy summary, but I'll get through it as quickly as I possibly can. Let me take a swig here. All right, so this from the AP. Breitbart, it's from Breitbart, but they summarize some of what the AP said. So a judge holds veteran journalist Catherine Herridge in civil contempt for refusing to divulge a source. This from the AP. A federal judge has held veteran investigative reporter Catherine Herridge in civil contempt for refusing to divulge her source for a series of Fox News stories about a Chinese American scientist who was investigated by the FBI but never charged. Okay. What are we concerned about now when it comes to the CCP and when it comes to the Chinese? Especially, we've got open borders. We have China buying farmlands, right? We have China sending military-aged men, all right, through our border. Man, I'm forgetting some. So, good Lord, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I had a list of things. So they're buying farmland. They're sending fentanyl through our borders, killing Americans. they're building police departments in metropolitan or stations within metropolitan areas to keep their citizens, well, Chinese Americans, all right, allegedly, but to keep some Chinese citizens, right, in check. Their own police stations inside of the United States of America. They're working with the Mexican cartel, and they're shipping to bring fentanyl into America. They're also working with the Mexican cartel to bring in, oh, good Lord, what are they called? Sear switches, which essentially make firearms, semi-automatic firearms, into automatic machine guns. They're also called Glock switches. You can literally put these mechanisms on Glock handguns and it'll make them fire like a machine gun. They won't be semi-automatic, where it's every time you pull the trigger, a bullet comes out. It'll be a machine gun where you pull the trigger once, but you get a buttload of bullets that come out. That's basically what it means. Getting back to this Catherine Herridge story. So we have plenty of reason to be fearful of the Chinese, and we know they're spying on us because they sent a balloon. Well, they're going to spy on us in the first place, so we assume that. But then they just do it overtly. They sent a hot air balloon to travel across the entire country of the United States of America, while Joe Biden does nothing about it. He lets the hot air balloon, and he and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin let it travel all across the United States of America, spying on our military installations. And once they were done spying, then we eventually shot them down, even though we missed the first time with a missile that cost so much money. It was absolutely insane. Getting back to the story, U.S. District Judge Christopher Cooper in Washington imposed a fine of $800 per day until Herridge reveals her source, but the fine will not go into effect immediately to give her time to appeal. Cooper wrote that he, quote, recognizes the paramount importance of a free press in our society, close quote, and the critical role of confidential sources in investigative journalism. But the judge said the court, quote, also has its own role to play in upholding the law and safeguarding judicial authority. I don't understand how he's upholding judicial authority with this. I really don't. Herridge and many of her colleagues in the journalism community may disagree with that decision and prefer that a different ballot be struck, but she is not permitted to file a federal court's order with impunity, wrote Cooper, who was nominated, by the way, by Barack Obama. A lawyer for Herridge, someone by the name of Patrick Philbin, declined to comment. He said the case has been being closely watched by media advocates who say forcing journalism. All right, I'm sorry. This is just a summary. Basically, there's journalists who say, listen, this is so dangerous because you have sources, you have journalists that cannot give up their confidential sources. Otherwise, it'll completely expose or they'll lose their credibility. Let me just read what they say here. The case has been being closely watched by media advocates who say forcing journalists to betray a promise of confidentiality could make sources think twice before providing information to reporters that could expose government wrongdoing. And of course, that's what the government wants. If they can force a journalist not only to comply, but to give up their sources, what do you think will happen to the sources? This is just common sense. The journalists won't have sources because sources rely on anonymity when they give up the goods oftentimes, all right? This is what Fox said in a statement. Holding a journalist in contempt for protecting a confidential source has a deeply chilling effect on journalism. Fox News Media remains committed to protecting the rights of a free press and freedom of speech and believes this decision should be appealed. I wish they meant that with J6, but nonetheless, they say that with Catherine Herridge in this particular situation. Even a CBS spokesperson, you guys know that CBS just recently fired Catherine Herridge, and I wonder if they're just trying to, get in good with us, if you will. All right, even though it won't work with me, but maybe it'll work for some independent-minded people out there. I don't know. But remember what CBS did with Catherine Herridge. They kicked her out on her duff. They wanted to pretend like she was really part of this major layoff, but she was the sole journalist at CBS that was reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop. Nobody else at CBS was doing it. So I suspect leading into an election cycle, that's why they kicked her out on her duff. They don't want real journalists. They want people that will comply. So if you watch CBS News, now you know that everybody that remains at CBS News, they're complying. Oh, by the way, I mean, there's more evidence that CNN is just totally collapsing. They're talking about getting rid of some of the biggest names: Anderson Cooper, Wolf Blitzer. So that's out there. Jake Tapper, Chris Wallace, that left Fox News, and one of the dumbest media moves I've ever, if not the dumbest media career move I've ever seen in my entire life, moving from Fox News to CNN. Just insane. Anyway, you get what you asked for. All right. But so CBS said concerning Herridge, said the contempt order, quote, should be concerning to all Americans who value the role of the free press in our democracy and understand that reliance on confidential sources is critical to the mission of journalism. The source is being sought by Yingping Chen, who has sued the government over the leak of details about the federal probe into statements she made on immigration forms related to work on a Chinese astronaut program. So Herridge, who was recently laid off by CBS, it reports, published an investigative series for Fox in 2017 that examined Chen's ties to the Chinese military and raised questions about whether the scientist was using a professional school that she founded in Virginia to help the Chinese government get information about American service members. Is this chick a spy? Is this chick a spy? The judge is more concerned about Catherine Herridge. The stories relied on what Chen's lawyers contend were items leaked from the probe, including snippets of an FBI document summarizing an interview that was conducted during the investigation, personal photographs and information taken from her immigration and naturalization forms, and from an internal FBI PowerPoint presentation. Chen sued the FBI and the DOJ in 2018, accusing the government of violating the Privacy Act, which prohibits the public disclosure of private information about individuals without their consent. What about if they're a spy? I'm just asking for a friend. Chen's lawsuit says both her personal and professional life were upended amid a wave of negative media attention after the leak, leading to the hate mail and death threats. I want to see them. And an attorney for Chen, Andrew Phillips, said the Privacy Act is meant to guard against government officials selectively leaking information about an American citizen's private life to, quote, smear reputations or score political points. And he went on to say such misconduct should not be without recourse just because a rogue government official happens to launder his or her wrongdoing via a journalist. All right, Phillips said in an email, today's ruling is an important one to ensure that government officials can be held to account for outrageous abuses of power. Who's being held to account if Catherine Herridge hasn't given up the source? You're just punishing Catherine Herridge. I guess they say by punishing Catherine Herridge, the more they do so, she'll give up the source. So this, I guess there should be whistleblower protections inside of our federal government in case someone is concerned that this woman, Yingping Chen, I'm assuming it's a woman, maybe a man, I'm not sure, but there should be whistleblower protections. But apparently, someone went to Catherine Herridge because they're wise enough to know that our intelligence communities are completely and utterly corrupt. The judge ordered Herridge in August to answer questions about her source or sources in a deposition with Chen's lawyers. The judge ruled that Chen's need to know for the sake of her lawsuit overcomes Herridge's right to shield her source. All right, so it is a female. Herridge was interviewed under oath in September by a lawyer for Chen, but declined dozens of times to answer questions about her sources, saying at one point, my understanding is that the courts have ruled that in order to seek further judicial review in this case, I must now decline the order, and respectfully, I am invoking my First Amendment rights and declining to answer the question. Straight up gangster. This is a lady who takes her job seriously. And perhaps a lady that knows a lot about this Yingping Chen. But the government wants to take her down because they can't have it. They're willing to allow the Chinese Communist Party, the left is, Democrats are. This guy, an Obama appointee. Normally, I'd like to say that doesn't matter, but you know it does in this environment. Chinese are buying farmland, installing their own police stations. They shut it down, I believe, finally, in New York at least. Shipping fentanyl into our country. Shipping sear switches, Glock switches to gangsters and Mexican cartels so they can use those switches and turn their firearms, semi-automatic firearms into machine guns. They're spying on us. This is unbelievable. Now, I want to close with this. I want to close with this interview, and this is 8 minutes long. Gabe, what we'll have to do, if you'll help me out just every couple of minutes, just go ahead and stop it. I'll just opine real quick, and then we'll just start it right back up. So if you didn't hear, the news has broken that Trump will be allowed on the ballot in Colorado, and that is a good move by the Supreme Court. How could you kick a man off the ballot for insurrection when he's never been charged with insurrection? I mean, this is just asinine on his face, and you're going to have plenty of commentators on CNN, MSNBC, and CBS all saying what an outrage this is, how unjust it is. No, the unjustness was done at the very beginning when Trump was kicked off of the ballot when he was never charged or convicted of a crime. These people are crazy and stupid, and they want you to be just as stupid as they are. Here's Steve Baker. I want you to notice his demeanor. Here's another story. This was on Epic Times. A fallout from massive cyber attack against one of the largest healthcare companies in the U.S. I believe it was United Healthcare. That's pretty scary. Another story we'll get to in a later podcast. Actually, I'm going to do a separate podcast. I was going to start with this, but I'm not going to. I wanted to keep this issue separate. But this was a major story that fell over the weekend. California lawmakers are fighting to make illegals eligible for first-time homebuyer loans. Isn't that sweet? Right after the murder of Laken Riley? Isn't that so sweet? You know what California is up to. I'll get to it. I'll divulge it more later. But you know what? You know what they're up to. This is insane. America has stolen land. They're just going to give it back to the people that they think really own it. Everybody but white people. Here's Steve Baker, journalist for The Blaze, after his arrest for reporting on J6 accurately. He didn't break any crimes, but they only came after him 3 years later. 3 years later. 3 years later. After Speaker Mike Johnson started allowing more J6 videos to be shown. All right, take care. I'm sorry, Gabe, let's roll
Steve,
it.
Let me just start with a dumb question, but we're buds, so it's a personal question. How are you doing, man?
I'm a little humiliated, but I'm okay.
What went on there for the last, 5 hours?
Yeah, well, starting at 7 o'clock this morning, they took me in, they processed me, put me in cuffs. That was the FBI, and then they put me in a car in cuffs and drove me to the courthouse, handed me over to the U.S. Marshals, who then put me in leg chains. The only thing that didn't happen that I was expecting was an orange jumpsuit. All I had to do was surrender my necktie and my belt and my shoelaces, and otherwise I was able to wear my clothes. But I did get to sport some leg chains for several hours.
I've not had a chance to read the charges, but looking at our mutual friend and colleague Sarah Gonzalez's feed, it appears that they're charging you with entering restricted grounds, disorderly conduct, parading, and picketing in the Capitol. Is that accurate? Are those the charges they gave you this morning?
Yeah, those are the charges. Is my behavior, or is that accurate? Was that my behavior? No. And of course, we have the video to prove that.
I assume were you able to communicate that to them, either yourself or your attorney, during the 5 hours you were
no.
there this morning?
No, that wasn't the purpose of this hearing today. This was just for me to accept the charges, to agree to all of the circumstances and the restrictions that I'm faced with going forward. and making sure that I just understand the law and how it pertains to this situation. And obviously, I'm essentially on probation right now while I'm not being detained. So anything I do can be used against me in a court of law, as they say.
Hey, let's hold it right there. Let's hold it right there for a quick sec, Gabe. All right. So again, this is Steve Baker of the Journal of the Blaze being interviewed by his colleague, Steve Deace of the Blaze. And notice all of the tactics that they use. I forget all of the charges, but parading the usual charges, right? Misdemeanor charges, but parading, and whatever. I forget the other couple of charges. Forgive me. Inside of the Capitol, but anyway, things that he was not guilty of. And if you've gone back and watched any of the video of Steve Baker, you'll see that the FBI are lying, but they're intimidating him. He comes in, they put shackles on his legs. Do you think this man is a threat? Think this man is a threat worthy of leg shackles? You think does this guy look like a guy that a felon, an ex-con? Maybe he's gotten I'm not even sure. This guy doesn't even look like a guy that would get a speeding ticket, but maybe, who knows? But this is insane. It's clearly intimidation. It's clearly, listen, the FBI is wanting to set an example. I don't know why the actually I do know why, because they're a bunch of feckless cowards. But the FBI needs to be totally defunded. The same is true with Merrick Garland. We got some video of him. I'll have to play this in a later podcast, but I mean, it's just insane. It's insane what's happening. All right, let's go ahead, Gabe. Let's go for it. Sorry.
Fortunately, I don't have a gag order on me.
That was my next question.
I have a restricted travel. Yeah, I don't have restricted travel to D.C., which is highly unusual, because that's what they do to 100% of the January 6th defendants, is they restrict their travel to D.C., but they did not, and I think that they didn't want that battle. I think they know that, because that's where I do most of my work, that this was something that they didn't want to, take a PR bloody nose on.
I saw our editor, Matthew Peterson, share on X or Twitter about an hour ago that the Blaze is poised to release footage that directly contradicts the charges against you. Did I see that correctly?
You did see that correctly. This is the tough part, and this is one of the things that's really difficult for anybody to understand unless they're following these trials and these cases, is that the charging documents and what they call the statements of facts are presented as a narrative from the government side, and it's usually 5, 6, 10 times worse than actually what the behavior of the defendant was, whether it was a misdemeanor or a felony. I mean, obviously, if you were swinging a baseball bat at a cop, whatever else they said doesn't matter. But if you're a person, like for instance, they're saying that I picketed and I paraded through the Capitol. Well, that did not happen. They said that I was disruptive and using abusive language. That did not happen. The only thing that they say in the statement of facts is what they have done to all of these, and I think I've even told you this before, is all of these trials are about scary words. All of this is about the suppression of speech and basically teaching those of us on the right side of the political spectrum what we can and cannot say and what is allowed. And so they are literally in the charging documents using words that I said before or after against me, not my behavior inside the Capitol.
Words after, you mean like editorial or political commentary? They're using that against you. Is that what you're alluding to?
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, let's stop right there. So they're using words that Steve Baker, as a journalist, used before and after, not his words while he was inside of the Capitol itself, against him. What have you said online before and after J6, where the FBI could come in and say, you know what? We're going to charge you for a crime here. You did nothing on the scene. Guys, this is an administration that is willing to be dictatorial. Meanwhile, to distract from Biden's policies and to distract from Biden's administration and the evil, the absolute evil of this administration. They'll arrest people like Steve Baker so that they can pretend like we're doing what they were doing. Guys, they're coming for all of us. That's a scary thought sometimes, but they're coming for all of us. We have to win in 2024, and it has to be convincingly. I think times are going to get darker before they get better. We have to win. All right, let's go ahead and roll this video game.
Wow. You never think this stuff's going to happen to you.
That's exactly. No, you don't. And this is the message that they're trying to send, is that this can happen to any of us. Mm-hmm. If we don't say the right things, if we don't restrict our speech, if we don't limit our speech in the manner in which they dictate, then this can happen to you, just as it's happening to me right now.
Steve, what was it like sitting in there and you're sitting there in Dallas, Texas. You're in the heart of Texas, a place that a lot of people think is kind of one of the last outpost Valhallas of Americana. And you're sitting there knowing that we are sitting on this footage that would exonerate you against their charges. And you're looking at people that go to the same McDonald's you do, the same Chick-fil-A you do, the same movie theater you do, drive the same streets you do, root for the same ball clubs you do. And you're looking at them, but they're treating you like you are another, like you are worthy of. You're not. There is no e pluribus unum here. It dies at the door, right? I mean, sitting there for 5 hours, looking around at your fellow countrymen, and just looking at their countenances and their behavior as they're doing this to you. What was that like? What crossed your mind?
Yeah. All of this has crossed my mind in the last 5 hours. I mean, especially after I had the opportunity to read the charging documents myself and to see what was going to be said, because, see, I know how this works. I've read hundreds of these J6 charging documents, and I know from experience how overly exaggerated they are, how distorted the narrative is from the government on these charging documents. But the problem is half of the country doesn't care. The other half are influenced by it still. I mean, it's going to color the way they think about somebody that has those types of things said about them. True or untrue, colored, uncolored, exaggerated or not, people are still going to believe a modicum even of that and think about you differently. So yeah, those, I walked out of the building today and, Matt looked at me and asked me how I was. I said, I'm more worried about how you are than I am.
Yeah. All right, so let me respond to that. Yeah, I mean, guys, we have to be worried. I mean, he's gone through the process. As horrible as this is for Steve Baker, and you can see his Twitter following underneath. And by the way, make sure you follow us on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, True Social Getter at The Carl Jackson Show. Support our sponsor, MyPillow.com. Right now, they've got some great deals available at MyPillow.com, including the MyPillow 2.0, the Giza Dream Sheets, mattress toppers, you name it, MyPillow towels. Guys, if you switch to MyPillow or the MyPillow towels, you're not going back, all right? You're not going back. I absolutely love them. All you have to do is click on the radio podcast square and enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L. If you're going to buy something, if you're going to buy one of the products that are on MyPillow, I'm asking you to consider MyPillow because you're going to get American-made products that are going to help American jobs, even while you get a good night's rest for buying their products. Giza Dream Sheets, you name it, MyPillow.com, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. But Steve Baker, like he said, he's more worried about the guy that's asking him how he's doing. He's gone through the process. He's got some name recognition. It doesn't mean that things are going to get easier for him. Obviously, they're going to try to intimidate people like him. But a lot of us haven't gone through that process, and God forbid we do. But this is all about intimidation leading up to 2024. It's going to be lawfare. It is going to be intimidation. It's going to be censorship. We're dealing with fascists. We're dealing with people that are total totalitarians. All right. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with Steve Baker. This is his interview with Steve Deace of The Blaze.
You know, how do you feel right now?
What's this been like on a personal level for your family? Just your daily life. You've had this sort of Damocles over you for months now, right?
Yeah, 2.5 years. And so my kids are good. You know, you ask me what it's like to go out into the world, the Chick-fil-A's, and have the perception of other people, and wondering what it was about you. There's only two people on this planet that I care about what they think about me, and it's the two people that I brought into this world. And my son and my daughter are proud of me, and they're behind me.
Goes for all of us here as well, Steve. God bless you, brother. And we got your back. You let us know, or our audience know, whatever we can do, whatever they can do, do not hesitate to ask, okay?
Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate that.
You got it, man. God bless.
All right. We'll end it there. That was, again, that was Steve Deace of the Blaze interviewing independent journalist Steve Baker. They both work under the umbrella of The Blaze. Again, that is Glenn Beck's media organization. And he was, the FBI never bothered with Steve Baker at all until Speaker Mike Johnson released new footage of the J6 riot. And as Steve Baker got more information, he reported on that. And then all of a sudden, the FBI wanted to talk to him because he was doing an effective job. So that's why it's really important. It's scary. It's a scary notion, but I remember Kyle Seraphin said this one time. He needs to build his profile because it makes it harder for these commies within these intelligence communities to go after these people and get away with it. And that's what we're seeing. That's why Steve Baker can say he's more concerned for the guy that's asking him how he's doing. Let me just share some news, things that I won't get to, but I do want to get to later. Obviously, you know that Super Tuesday is tomorrow. Over the weekend, Trump racked up. Let me just make sure that I get this. Make sure that I get this correctly here, because I don't even pay attention to anymore. I got to be honest with you. I know this is sad as a commentator, but I don't really pay attention anymore to the primary, because for all intents and purposes, barring a miracle, it is absolutely over. And I don't think there's going to be a miracle from Nikki Haley. I don't think that she's necessarily likable, if you will, and she does not have a base. She simply does not have a base. All she has are a few people that hate Trump so much they're willing to vote for her. That's exactly why she was able to win in Washington, D.C., but she's not been able to win anywhere. And she hasn't, and even her second place finishings have not been impressive in the least bit. So let me just give you, let me look through. I want to make sure that I give you the correct information. And again, there's so much information out today, so much news out today. It is insane. I literally had a whole show ready to go and decided to at least scrap it for the time being. We'll either record tomorrow morning or later this evening with the other stuff that I was going to run with. But because there's so much stuff on the border that I want to get to. Also, Florida, we've gotten the University of Florida has gotten rid of DEI and their DEI program altogether. You had an MSNBC guest called "White Rural Voters a Threat to Democracy." I will get to that story later. I want to definitely opine on that. I want to tell you what that is all, what that's all about. Actually, Donald Trump wins the caucuses in Michigan, Missouri, and Idaho. Forgive me if you see me on camera. I don't know why the heck my back is itching like crazy, but it is. Former President Donald Trump won the Missouri, Idaho, and Michigan Republican presidential caucuses on Saturday over rival Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina. So Missouri, Idaho, and Michigan. All right. So Trump won the Missouri caucuses on Saturday over Nikki Haley. at 12:40 p.m. Eastern time, according to the AP's call. Soon after results began to come in, he was deemed victorious in Idaho at 6:58 p.m. Eastern, with about 2/3 of the results officially counted. The former president won all the delegates in Missouri. He won 85% of the Idaho caucus vote at the time of this writing. Trump also won the Michigan Republican caucus Saturday with 98% of the vote, days after he easily won the Michigan primary over Haley. So you get even more. He even won that by a larger amount, and that's because Trump is viewed as, remember, he switched up the Republican Republican Party. It's no longer the party of the cocktail party, but it became the blue collar party, so to speak. And so he's going to win those votes, especially union workers and the like. But I'll get into this thing with rural voters. I'll break that down a little later. There's so many other news things, but look for a second podcast either tonight or tomorrow to follow up on that, guys. I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Until next time, do not grow weary doing good. Oh, Biden calls illegal immigrants newcomers. I got to get into that. God almighty, we got to get into that. And the housing situation in California, where they're literally trying to give illegal aliens, first-time home buyers, privileges. Unfreaking believable. All right. Until next time, guys, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.